If you can't give me a grandchild, then get a divorce. Fine, I got it. I'm pregnant though. Tao! I am Anne, as a homemaker in my 30s, living with my husband Jones, who is an office worker. I met Jones when I was working at a company related to the food industry. Over time, as we spoke many times regarding transactions, I found myself falling for his occasional smiles. So I took the initiative and proposed a relationship. When I proposed, he rejected me, saying, "I'm sorry. I'm glad for your feelings, but I already have a girlfriend." However, a month later, he approached me saying, "I broke up with my girlfriend. I would like to be with you." Apparently, since the time I confessed to him, he started to think about me, and his girlfriend, sensing this change, asked, "Did you find someone else you like?" Upon him nodding, they agreed to part ways when she suggested, "Shall we break up?" That's what I heard. He felt guilty for causing their breakup, but he reassured me with a smile. "Don't worry about it. It probably wouldn't have lasted long anyway." I was saved by his kindness. After a relationship of 3 years, we got married. At that time, Jones had said, "I want to have children after we get married. And for that, could you stay at home and support me and the children?" Back then, I wasn't keen on continuing my job at a somewhat toxic company. So as per his suggestion, I quit my job to become a full-time homemaker. I chose to support him. Transitioning suddenly from a working woman to a homemaker was harder than I thought, with many confusing moments, but it didn't bother me. Because our newlywed life was sailing smoothly, and I was constantly at the pinnacle of happiness. Every day was fun and happy. Moreover, the absence of any mother-in-law issues was a great factor. Son's family home is just a 10-minute walk from our apartment. Actually, I was worried that they might frequently visit and hassle me, but those fears were unfounded. His parents were very kind. Even when I just asked a small question, they would come all the way to our home. But to our home, they explained it to me gently and kindly. And they never complained about our childlessness, even saying, "To me, you are even dearer than a grandchild." We only have men in our family. I always wanted a daughter. "Please let us pamper you like our real daughter." I was very fond of his mother, Carol, and though he was a man of few words, I trusted his reliable father, Tom, very much. But such a heartwarming relationship lasted only for the first few years. A few years into our marriage, the attitude of his once kind parents began to change gradually, and Tom became even more reticent, and Carol had changed so much that I suspected her of having a dual personality. Now, perhaps this is her true self. And to quantify her change, if she was at plus 100 before, now she was at minus 100 maybe. That's how harsh she had become towards me. Living nearby, she started visiting our house frequently, nagging me in Joan's absence, repeatedly urging me to show her the face of my grandchild soon. That's a wife's duty, isn't it? And rushing me to have a child. A while ago, she used to say, "Children are a gift from heaven." I'm OWD. You don't have to try hard. You'll conceive naturally when the time comes. So don't rush. Furthermore, Carol began to pressure me by citing other families, saying things like, "The family over there recently had a baby." SUME, the woman next door, is also pregnant. WM, and what about you? But no matter how much he pressed me for a grandchild, it was meaningless if Jones wasn't ready. At the beginning of our marriage, he did say he wanted children, but a year into our marriage, he had completely lost interest. Even when I tried to initiate, he would decline, saying, "I'm tired, maybe next time, or don't interrupt my gaming." Even when I told Carol about this, she didn't seem to understand and kept pressuring me about having a child, increasing my stress day by day. Unable to endure her attacks any longer, I confided in Jones about the pressure I was receiving from her to have a grandchild. Then he said with a grumble, "I don't think we need to rush this, you know, but it agreed to increase our intimate time together as much as possible." But despite our joint efforts as a couple, getting pregnant seemed elusive. Moreover, throughout this time, Carol kept hurling insults at us, saying things like, "It's because you're not trying hard enough." My son is not to blame at all. At times, I suspected that the accumulated stress caused by her might be making it harder to conceive. And unable to withstand the pressure from her anymore, we, as a couple, finally decided to undergo fertility treatments. 6 months, I thought I could breathe a sigh of relief, but now I'm faced with a new problem that is tormenting me. It's about Jones. Since the time we started the fertility treatment, he's begun to act cold towards me, increasingly retreating to his room to play video games as soon as he returned home from work, and ignoring me. When I tried to talk to him, if it were just that, it might have been tolerable. However, Jones has become even more irritable, flying off the handle over my spending a little money on craft supplies for my hobby and taking out his work stress on me. Whenever I tried to argue back, he would quickly lose his temper, constantly saying one-sided things like, "Who do you think is providing for you, you freeloader?" and repeating his selfish behavior. No matter how many times I told him that I quit my job because of his wishes, he wouldn't listen. One day, when John should have been going to work, he was playing video games at home. When I asked him, "Aren't you going to work?" he simply replied, "I quit." He had quit his job without telling me anything. Shocked, I inquired about the reason, but all he did was lose his temper, saying, "It's none of your business." First, I was disgusted by his uncooperative attitude, but I thought there was nothing I could do since he had already quit. I wasn't panicked about the money, thinking that we could manage somehow by relying on unemployment benefits and dipping into our home savings for a while. However, the prospect of him having no intent to find a new job began to stress me out. But Jones, having quit his job, now spends his days at home from morning to evening. Differently or numbered as a prior, I wish he would go out once in a while, but gaming is his only hobby. Apart from going to the convenience store to buy cigarettes, he was constantly playing games at home. Compared to when he was a working man, the time we spent face-to-face as a couple increased dramatically. At Itations and the early days of our relationship, I would have taken this as an opportunity for more affectionate moments, but not anymore. The increase in face-to-face time with him, who had gone from +100 to -100 just like Carol, meant that our arguments as a couple were also on the rise. Gradually, we realized that even just talking to each other was becoming stressful, and we stopped conversing almost entirely. I wonder if there's any point in continuing this married life. I began to feel that this marriage was reaching its limits. I started thinking about finding a way to escape the current situation. One day, finally fed up with Jones loafing around playing games at home all day like a child, I told him, "You're not a kid. Stop playing games all the time and start looking for a job." To which he responded, "Oh, by the way, my mom told me that if we can't have a baby, we should get a divorce." That's when I found myself feeling grateful to Carol, something I never expected. After all, I am pregnant. I found out during a checkup today and had planned to tell him tonight. But it seems it was the right decision not to tell him. Now I can get away from both Carol and Jones. I said, "Okay, got it. Here, the divorce papers." Pulling out the already filled out divorce papers from a drawer and handing them to him. Perhaps not expecting me to agree to the divorce, let alone produce ready-to-sign papers, he was taken aback, stuttering, and freezing on the spot. His usual domineering attitude was nowhere to be seen. He looked dumbfounded. Seeing my face, Jones seemed to want to say something, but convinced that he couldn't disregard what his mother said. He went ahead and signed the divorce papers, continuously sneaking glances at me throughout. Later, we gathered to discuss matters like property division, but we didn't have much in terms of assets to worry about. In reality, he often splurged on his hobbies. Not only did he play games at home, but he also seemed to have spent a significant amount of money at game centers. Although he had previously complained about my spending habits, it turned out that he was the one with the more reckless financial behavior. The concept of saving money was non-existent for him. He hadn't saved any money since before we got married, and nothing had changed even after our marriage. Consequently, we had no assets to divide. Realizing that we had no assets to split, I thought the discussion was over, but Jones insisted it wasn't, pointing to a passbook with a considerable amount of savings and suggesting we divide that. And as well, however, this savings account was not subject to property division. This is the savings I accumulated before our marriage, so it is not subject to property division, I told him, watching as his face turned progressively paler. Even then, my husband exclaimed, "Oh yeah, this condo would be part of the property division, wouldn't it? I've been living here too, after all." But to him, I delivered the harsh reality. "Unfortunately, the condo is in my name, so you have no rights to it. Moreover, I've already put it up for sale, so you can't live here anymore. It would be a nuisance, so please leave immediately," I told him with a smile. Besides, I thought this condo would become too small in the future, so I had been saving up for a new home. Before marrying Jones, saving was a hobby of mine, so even with a regular job, I had managed to save quite a bit. I had used those savings to buy this condo during a time of rapid advancement, which means I had a substantial amount of property. That with even the funds from selling the condo, I could build a decent house in downtown. Of course, all this property was acquired during my single days, so it won't be a subject for the property division this time. It seems he wasn't aware of that. He seemed to think he could get half of my assets. What a shame. Upon realizing that he won't be part of the asset division, my husband was in a state of shock. Afterwards, we continued discussing, but he couldn't recover from his shock. Since there wasn't much to talk about anymore, the discussion ended quickly and I submitted the divorce papers at the city office. Our divorce was finalized without a hitch. A few months later, I went back to my parents' home and with their support, gave birth to a child safely. It was a healthy baby boy. His stiff named him Ethan, a name borrowed from the Bible. Now, I spend fulfilling days with my loving child and parents. Of course, I haven't informed Jones and company, because if I do, I'm sure Carol would barge in demanding give back my grandchild. On the other hand, Jones, who's evicted from the condo, went back to his parents' home, but seemed to have become a recluse due to the shock of the easy agreement to the divorce. Occasionally, when he goes out, his appearance seems so suspicious that he often gets stopped by the cops. It seems quite pitiful. I heard later that the reason he quit his job was due to issues with interpersonal relationships. Until he had a bad mouth even at the office and was especially disliked by female employees, eventually being ignored by everyone. Unable to withstand such circumstances, he suddenly quit his job one day. He might have been that kind of person even before our marriage. He was only kind in front of me, an utterly deceptive man. 3 years later, I'm working as the manager of a craft store. That's around the time I became a regular at a local craft store. The owner approached me. I'm getting old and thinking of retiring. If it's all right with you, and would you like to take over this store? I was proposed by the owner. Today, as I was serving the occasional regular cooker, an unexpected visitor came to see me. Yes, those unexpected visitors were Carol and Jones. Well, a pretty nice store for you, huh? Yeah, Mom. Look, this fabric seems to suit you. So what brings you here? Jones, who knew nothing about this, couldn't utter a word due to the pain and looked at my father with a pathetic expression. Well, if you intend to bother my child and grandchild any further, I'm ready to take necessary actions. What do you want to do? My father asked, showing his police badge to Carol, who turned pale and ran away, dragging Jones with her. I don't know what became of Carol and Jones after that. And honestly, I don't want to know. Several years later, Ethan began aspiring to become a police officer, looking up to my father. When I grow up, he says, I'm going to be a police officer too. That way, I can protect Mom.